Do you ever find that your photographs just look like everybody else's? I don't necessarily think that's your fault. You see, we are bombarded by so much imagery these days. It's on Facebook, it's on Instagram, all number of different social media sites. And it's very difficult to go through the day without looking at or seeing photographs. And I think all of these photographs and all of these things have an influence on what we do and what we produce as photographers. So I think sometimes we need to take a slightly different approach, because it didn't always used to be this way. Now, I'm not advocating that you stop looking at social media, that you just stop going online and not doing any research, because to be honest, you know, that's not progress, is it? That would be a major step backwards. But I do think we have lost some of the spirit of discovery, some of the feelings that we get, and some of the things that used to challenge us, like not knowing what we were going to find when we get to a location, that actually made us a little bit boring, I suppose. There is a very good saying in that you reap what you sow. And I think it's true with photography as well, because without any doubt, if you sow the seeds of familiarity, if you sow the seeds of looking at the same images all the time online, then when you're out in the field, the chances are you're going to start producing work that's very similar to that, because we're all influenced by what we look at. So is there an alternative? Well, I think there is. Take the photograph I'm working on now at the moment as an example. If I had come down here today and had preconceived ideas of what I'm going to look at, what I'm going to see, and how I'm going to do today's photography, I wouldn't have taken this image. And that would be because your mind sometimes becomes blinded to what's gone before. I've been looking for the photographs which I had seen online, which I had seen on Instagram and other things, and even guidebooks to a certain degree. Although in a good guidebook you don't get so many pictures and so much in there. It's more descriptive and gives you more of an idea of what you're going to look at, rather than the thousands of pictures that you can see of locations, especially if they're popular locations. Let me show you this photo, and I'll tell you then how I came to actually take this image and arrive here today without having a preconceived idea. So when I got down to this location, I noticed that the water was a lovely sort of dull green colour. There was plenty of autumn colour around, but really nothing to draw your eye and nothing to make an image out of and to really capture. And I found it quite hard actually to find something. In fact, I got a bit worried, thinking I might not make a video. But there's always something to photograph if you look. And what I noticed coming out of the water was these trees which had clearly fallen or died or sunk into the mud, and there was these deep black branches, some with green moss on, coming out of the water, and also there was some autumnal leaves swirling around a little bit, and capturing that was what I really wanted to do. Sorry, I'm rambling a little bit. So I'm rambling because I'm watching the leaves go past and capturing them as things change. So this photograph is all about the motion of the water, the smoothness, the light reflections, the colours and the movement of those autumnal leaves. And although it's probably not a fantastic photograph, getting these things in one shot, getting these things together, really does capture the essence of the creek this morning. So how did I find today's photograph? Well, I found it by looking with my eyes, obviously, but to eventually get to this point, simple, my phone. Well, not my phone exactly, but maps. I used a map. And then that might sound like a really, really obvious thing to do, but how many times do you actually sit down with a map and study it before you go out? Is a map what you use to discover what's in the landscape? Because actually, if you think about it, it's the most complete authority, the most complete guide there is available on what we're likely to see when we go to a location. Now, it doesn't matter whether you use a paper map or whether you use an app on your phone like I do. You can scroll around on your phone and you can look at different things and it will show you exactly what it is that you're looking for. Now yes, it takes a bit of experience to learn how to read them, but the results from your photography will be so much better because you come out with a very good idea of what's in the landscape and what it has to offer. But you don't come out with the preconceived ideas of poring over lots of other people's photographs to cloud your mind and your vision. Didn't take me long to find my next photograph. In fact, I'd only moved just a couple of feet along the riverbank and there it was, my next image. There's this branch reaching out from a trunk growing out of the tree, out of the river, sorry, and heading out over the river. And it gives me this idea of indeed reaching out, and I just like the way that it reached out over these very still, calm, green waters. On the other side of the riverbank, it's quite dark and moody under the shadow of the trees, and I just liked that at the top of the at the frame. It reminds me of a photograph I took a few years ago on Dartmoor, to be fair. So the problem that I've had taking this image isn't so much with the composition of it or these various elements, it's been the wind. Because for this image to work, I need the branch to be really nice and crisp and still. And with the wind that blows through that you keep hearing every so often, here comes another gust now, the branch is bouncing up and down ever so slightly. But when you're dealing in these deep sort of dark conditions with a shutter speed of somewhere around about 2 to 4 seconds, then it makes a difference. I can't really focus stack because of that movement, so I need to use an aperture, and I've shot at f11, f16 that will give me the sharpness that I need from front to back. We'll just have to see how this comes out when I look at it on the big screen later on, but I'll share the photograph with you anyway. I left this part of the creek with a little trepidation. I wasn't sure that either of these photographs would work, but I'm pleased I like them both. The gaps I found in the breeze were just enough to let me get a sharp photograph of the branch. The colours transport me back to the great sense of calm I had walking along the creek. This approach to my photography today seems to be working. I'm really pleased that I looked on the map and I didn't research this area at all before I started this walk. I didn't want to come down with those preconceived ideas. And I think both of these images would have been harder to take unless I'd come with that attitude of exploration and just looking and understanding what it is. The estuary has changed completely to what it was before. Now we're out in the open, we've lost that green sort of colour, and it's now under the blue sky that's starting to come out. It's gone completely blue and entirely different. It's not so gentle either, but there's still a nice wind every so often, which is getting the boats swirling about. And it's these boats which are moving about that's attracted me to take this photograph. We've got a stream running down across the beach into the water as well, and I thought it would be quite nice to use that as a lead in to the photograph. And then the background, we've got the hills, the bank of the estuary on the other side. I just thought it just gels itself together really quite nicely. The concern I've got though is the gap, the big empty space of water in between. But this is going to be a real minimalist type photograph, and I'm going to achieve that by using long exposure. The idea is that the boats will be blurred and moving slightly, and the water will be calm and smoothed out, and the only sharp parts in the image will be the gravelly beach a small bit of the jetty sticking out and the land on the other side, and that will give us our strong sort of like visual anchors, so to speak, in the image. Not 100% sure how it's going to come out. I've got a few other images in mind that I might take as well that I think might look quite nice, but we'll see how it goes. Have a look at this, see what you think. Photographs don't always work, and this photograph will never get close to my portfolio, but it does not detract in any way from the experience of sitting there and watching the world go by. I set this photograph up with the neutral density filter again, the 10 stop, the polarizer filter on the 300mm lens, and I did that because I've just isolated a very small section of the water where, going across the frame, there's some seaweed and a couple of buoys. And I thought, like with the boats, having those gently moving on the water, it'd be nice to do the same with this small composition that I've picked out. I've also taken it at a slightly faster shutter speed with just the polarizer, just to get a different perspective on it and see which one I prefer best. This is a very simple photograph, but going in close allowed me to capture a small section of this landscape that works better, and it still reminds me of this special moment. So I came out today to explore really, and started off the day thinking about how we can make our images different to other people's, and if exposure to all this online imagery and social media and everything else that we see actually clouds our vision and dulls our creativity a little bit, meaning that we come away with images that we've seen other people take before and they're not really our original work. I think possibly the solution to the problem is not to look at what we're going to photograph, but when we get to a location for the first time, is ask ourselves why we are photographing it.